The alien queen asked me to choose a rank. I said husband, and she meant it. As a human xenobiologist, he had spent years studying alien species from the safety of Earth, reading reports, watching simulations, and analyzing data. But standing now on the surface of Xytheria, a planet known only in whispers and classified files, Elias felt the weight of reality pressing down on him. The air shimmered with a faint green glow, and the sky above the city seemed to stretch infinitely. Towering structures of metal and crystal reflected the light in dazzling patterns, casting prismatic colors across the wide, polished streets. The Xytherians themselves were unlike anything he had studied before. Tall, elegant, and graceful, their skin seemed almost translucent under the sun, and their eyes glowed faintly in hues he could not name. Each movement they made had a rhythm, a deliberate grace that made even the simplest gestures look like dance. Elias adjusted the strap of his research bag and tried not to stare. Today was his first formal meeting with the rulers of Xytheria, the leaders whose names he had memorized, but whose faces he had only seen in holographic transmissions. And now here he was, walking into the most important hall on the planet, the Grand Council chamber of the Xytherian palace. "Stay calm, Elias," he muttered under his breath. "It's just like a conference, just a very, very advanced conference." The corridor leading to the main hall was wider than any street he had ever walked on. The floor seemed to hum softly under his boots, as if the building itself was alive, responding to his presence. Panels along the walls shifted subtly, displaying images of planets, stars, and galaxies. It was mesmerizing, but Elias had a job to do, and he forced himself to focus. At the end of the corridor, double doors of polished crystal opened automatically. Inside, the Grand Council chamber was even more spectacular. Hundreds of Xytherians stood in orderly rows, their forms glowing faintly under the chamber lights. And at the far end, elevated on a platform of floating crystal, sat Queen Lysara herself. She was breathtaking. Elias had seen images, yes, but the reality was different. Her presence was magnetic, commanding attention without a single gesture. Her skin shimmered in subtle shades of violet and silver, and her eyes, larger than human eyes, reflected wisdom and power. Her expression was calm, yet her gaze was piercing, as if she could see everything about Elias in an instant. "Dr. Elias Mercer," a voice echoed through the chamber. It was deep, resonant, and somehow both welcoming and intimidating. "Welcome to Xytheria. We have observed your species for some time, and your courage in traveling here is notable." Elias swallowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said, using the formal greeting he had been coached on endlessly. He stepped forward, trying to appear confident while his heart pounded against his ribs. Queen Lysara's lips curved in a small, almost imperceptible smile. "We value humans for your unpredictability," she said, "and today we wish to honor you in our society. You may choose a rank among our people, a symbolic gesture, yes, but one of great respect." Elias blinked. A rank? He had read about Xytherian society, of course. It was hierarchical, structured, and precise. To be offered a rank was an incredible honor. Yet the words he said next came from a strange mix of nervousness, humor, and perhaps a hint of boldness. "Husband," he said. The chamber went silent. Not a single whisper, not a single sound except the faint hum of the floor beneath him. Elias froze. Did he just say that? The words seemed to hang in the air like a strange, living thing. Queen Lysara's eyes widened slightly, and then she regarded him steadily. "You mean that literally?" she asked. Elias' throat tightened. He opened his mouth to explain, but no words came. Humor had slipped from his nervous mind, and now it seemed he had created a situation far beyond any social experiment he had studied. I was joking," he stammered. Lysara's expression softened, but there was a glint of amusement, or was it curiosity, in her eyes. "Humor is a trait we have observed in your species," she said. "But in this case, your choice will be taken seriously. The position of husband carries responsibilities, privileges, and influence. Are you willing to accept it?" Elias' mind raced. Responsibilities, influence. Husband, he had not expected any of this, and yet as he looked at the queen, he realized there was no going back. Saying the words had changed his life in ways he could not yet understand. I suppose," he said finally, keeping his voice as steady as possible. "If that is your way of honoring me, I accept." A ripple went through the chamber. Advisors whispered among themselves, and Elias could see that he had become the center of attention. But instead of fear, he felt something else, fascination. These beings, so alien and so advanced, were now considering him as part of their inner circle. He was not just a visitor anymore. Queen Lysara gestured gracefully. "Then it is settled. Dr. Elias Mercer, you will assume the role of my husband. There will be guidance, training, and trials, of course, but first you must be introduced to our culture, our laws, and our people." Elias nodded, trying to process the enormity of what had just happened. "Of course, Your Majesty," he said. He was led to a side chamber where the palace's advisors explained the first steps. "The role of husband is not merely ceremonial," said one advisor, a tall Zythurian with translucent blue skin. "You will represent the queen in many matters. You will speak for humans in council meetings. You will learn our customs, our language, and our philosophy, and above all, you will be expected to act with honor and wisdom." Elias listened intently, scribbling notes on a small tablet. His mind spun with questions. Could he even learn the customs fast enough? Could he communicate properly? Would humans even understand the expectations placed on him? Despite the anxiety, a spark of excitement ignited inside him. This was a chance to be more than a scientist observing from afar. This was a chance to live among a species far beyond human technology and experience their culture firsthand. And perhaps, in some small way, he could teach them about humanity as well. Over the next few hours, Elias toured the palace under the guidance of a Zythurian tutor. He marveled at floating gardens, rivers of light, and rooms that seemed to change shape depending on the purpose. Each part of the palace revealed a layer of Zythurian sophistication, and he realized how much humans had yet to learn about the universe. As he walked through the halls, he caught glimpses of the queen observing him from a distance. She did not speak, but her gaze followed him with interest. It was clear that she was measuring him, watching how he reacted to new experiences, and perhaps deciding whether he was fit for the role he had so boldly claimed. By the end of the day, Elias was exhausted but exhilarated. He had survived the first test, showing composure in front of the queen and her court. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. Trials awaited, knowledge had to be gained, and relationships had to be built. As he prepared to rest in a guest chamber designed for his species' comfort, he looked out over the city below. The alien world stretched endlessly, full of wonders, challenges, and mysteries. And in that moment, Elias realized something profound. Humans were small in the universe, yes, but they were capable of courage, humor, and adaptability that even the most advanced beings could respect. And perhaps, just perhaps, this impulsive, awkward choice of words, husband, was the first step toward proving it. He lay back on the soft bedding, his mind alive with possibilities, and for the first time in his life, Elias Mercer felt that being human was enough, maybe even extraordinary. Outside, the Zythurian city glowed under twin moons, serene and infinite, and the future waited, mysterious and thrilling, for the human who had joked his way into history. The morning light on Zythuria was different from anything Elias had experienced. Twin suns rose slowly over the crystalline city, casting long, iridescent shadows across the streets below. From his window in the guest chamber, he could see the floating gardens swaying gently in a wind that smelled faintly sweet, like flowers he had never encountered on Earth. Elias rubbed his eyes and tried to prepare for the day ahead. Today, he would meet the advisors, scholars, and diplomats who would help him understand what it truly meant to be the Queen's husband. The first challenge, he suspected, was simple: survive the explanations without fainting. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. A Zythurian attendant floated in, gliding on movements so smooth they seemed almost magical. "Doctor." "Mercer," the attendant said in lilting tones, "Queen Lysara requests your presence in the council hall for your orientation." Elias swallowed nervously and followed. Every step he took seemed to echo in the vast palace corridors, which shimmered as if alive. Even after one day, the palace still felt like a living organism, breathing, watching, and judging. The council hall was unlike anything he had ever imagined. It was circular, with walls that curved upward into an open dome of light. At the center floated a holographic map of the entire Zythurian planet, glowing in blues and purples. Around it, hundreds of Zythurians were seated, each in elegant, flowing attire. They turned toward him as he entered, their glowing eyes reflecting curiosity, calculation, and in some, amusement. Queen Lysara sat at the highest point of the room, her presence undeniable. "Doctor." Mercer, she said, her voice calm yet powerful, today you will learn about our customs, our laws, and your responsibilities. Knowledge is the foundation of respect. Without it, a husband is only a title, not a partner. Elias nodded. Yes, your majesty, I am ready to learn. A Zythurian scholar stepped forward. Humans often underestimate the complexity of Zythurian society, she said, her translucent skin shimmering under the dome lights. Our hierarchy is precise, and each role carries weight. As the Queen's husband, you will be expected to act as mediator, advisor, and representative of humans. You must understand our laws, traditions, and philosophy, or your influence will be limited. Elias tried to absorb every word. The truth hit him. This role was not ceremonial. It was political, social, and in ways he had never imagined, personal. He was now a part of Zythurian society, whether he liked it or not. The first lesson began with language. Zythurian words were melodic and long, each syllable carrying multiple layers of meaning. To speak incorrectly could be considered disrespectful. Elias listened carefully, repeating each word slowly, careful not to embarrass himself. The scholar smiled faintly at his effort. You are human, she said. You may never speak as fluently as a Zythurian, but your ability to learn quickly is noted. Adaptability is a valued human trait. Elias felt a small surge of pride. He had always believed in the potential of humanity. Here on a distant world, that belief was being tested, and so far validated. Next came the customs. The Queen's court had a ceremony to welcome him as husband. Unlike Earth traditions, it was both symbolic and practical. Elias would be formally recognized in public, but also taught the responsibilities of leadership. How to negotiate disputes, how to advise the Queen, and how to represent humans in matters of diplomacy. As he moved through the palace, the world outside seemed almost unreal. Hovering bridges connected towers that shimmered like gemstones. Gardens floated midair, filled with plants that seemed to glow with their own energy. Streams of water curved in the air before settling into crystal basins. It was breathtaking, and Elias could not help but feel small yet privileged to experience it firsthand. During a break, he wandered into a quieter part of the palace. Here, Zythurians practiced forms of art he had never seen. Music created by movements rather than instruments, paintings that shifted colors depending on the observer's angle, and sculptures that seemed to breathe. He realized that every aspect of their culture was designed to stimulate thought, creativity, and connection. Dr. Mercer, a voice called. Elias turned to see the Queen approaching, gliding effortlessly across the floor. Her eyes, as always, were attentive, studying him closely. You seem intrigued, she said, her tone soft yet commanding. Elias hesitated. I've never seen anything like this. Your art, your architecture, it's incredible. Lysara tilted her head slightly, as if weighing his sincerity. Curiosity is important. A husband who cannot appreciate our culture cannot serve its people. I will learn, Elias said firmly. I want to understand, I want to help. She nodded, then gestured toward a nearby platform. Then let us begin your first real trial, observing and mediating a council dispute. You will be required to listen, understand both sides, and propose a solution. This will test your empathy, logic, and adaptability. Elias swallowed. He had expected lessons, but not this. A trial already? His stomach twisted, but he reminded himself of Earth's first explorers. They had faced unknown dangers and learned quickly. He could do this. The trial room was adjacent to the main hall. Two factions of Zythurians were arguing, their voices melodic but firm. The dispute involved trade agreements between floating cities and the allocation of resources from distant planets. Elias stood quietly, observing. Every gesture, every word carried meaning. Misreading them could have consequences he could not predict. He took a deep breath. Drawing on his human experience, he started asking questions, clarifying points, and summarizing what each side wanted. At first, the Zythurians seemed skeptical of a human's involvement, but as he continued, they began to nod, acknowledging his observations. Your reasoning is unusual, one elder said. Humans often find simple solutions where we see only complexity, yet your approach is effective. Elias smiled faintly, feeling a surge of confidence. He was not just a guest, he was contributing. He was being recognized as a partner, even if he had stumbled into the role by accident. After the dispute was resolved, the Queen approached him again. You are learning quickly, she said. Your humor, your logic, your ability to adapt, these are strengths humans possess. Few of my people could approach the problem with your perspective. Elias felt a warm sense of pride. He was human, and here on Zytheria, being human was a gift, not a limitation. The rest of the day passed in a blur of lessons, tour, and introductions. Elias met scholars who taught him philosophy, engineers who explained technology beyond Earth's understanding, and artists who encouraged him to express himself creatively. Each interaction challenged him, yet each also reminded him of humanity's unique potential: curiosity, resilience, and the ability to connect with others. By evening, he returned to his chamber, exhausted but exhilarated. He had survived the trial, learned new language skills, and made small but meaningful contributions to Zythurian society. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. The palace, the culture, and the responsibilities of being the queen's husband were vast and complex. Elias looked out the window again. The city shimmered under the twin moons, calm yet alive. He thought of Earth, of its chaos and beauty, and realized that humans, despite their flaws, had something remarkable: adaptability. In a universe filled with beings far more advanced than humans, adaptability, humor, and courage could make a difference. And perhaps, he thought with a small smile, that was why the Queen had taken his words seriously. She saw in humans a spark, a quality that even her people admired. As he prepared for sleep, Elias reflected on the day. He had stumbled into a role far beyond anything he had imagined. He had laughed nervously, he had learned, and he had begun to earn respect. And through it all, one truth became clear: humans could thrive even in the most alien of worlds, not by being the strongest or the smartest, but by being human. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities. And Elias Mercer, the accidental husband of the alien queen, was ready to face them. The palace hummed softly around him, alive with light and energy, as if acknowledging his presence. Outside, Zytheria stretched endlessly, full of mysteries waiting to be discovered. And in the quiet of his chamber, Elias finally allowed himself to imagine what the future might hold. It would not be easy, it would not be simple. But it would be extraordinary. The morning on Zytheria arrived with a calm, golden glow as Elias Mercer prepared himself for the next stage of his unexpected journey. Yesterday had been a day of learning, observation, and small victories. Today, however, would test not only his intelligence, but also his courage, empathy, and ability to act under pressure. A soft hum signaled the arrival of a Zythurian guide, their translucent wings shimmering faintly in the light. "Doctor." "Mercer," the guide said, their voice gentle yet precise, "Queen Lysara awaits you for your first formal trial. You will be evaluated on judgment, compassion, and adaptability." Elias swallowed nervously but squared his shoulders. He had survived the initial orientation and a council dispute. He could do this. The trial began in the Hall of Challenges, a circular arena within the palace designed for ceremonial and educational purposes. The walls shimmered with holographic projections of various landscapes, from vast deserts to floating cities, and a soft, melodic vibration filled the air. Elias felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. "Doctor." "Mercer," Queen Lysara said, gliding gracefully into the arena, "today you will demonstrate your ability to mediate and solve problems in situations that are unpredictable. Success requires understanding, creativity, and a willingness to learn from those around you." Elias nodded. "I understand, Your Majesty." The first challenge appeared before him, a holographic simulation of a Zythurian trade dispute. Two factions of holographic citizens argued over resources that had been disrupted by a sudden natural disaster. Their voices were animated, their gestures exaggerated to convey emotion clearly. Elias recognized the importance of the situation immediately. If he made a mistake, the simulation indicated that the conflict could escalate dangerously. He observed quietly, taking careful notes. The first faction demanded immediate aid, insisting that fairness required equal distribution. The second faction argued for prioritizing those in most danger. Elias considered both sides, analyzing the problem from multiple angles. "Balance," he said aloud, even as he thought it through. "You must address immediate need without ignoring fairness. Prioritize those in greatest danger first, but allocate resources to ensure no one is left behind." The simulation paused, and the holographic factions nodded in approval. A soft chime indicated success. Elias allowed himself a small smile. The first test was complete, but he knew it was only a prelude to the real trials. Queen Lysara's eyes held a glimmer of approval. Your reasoning is logical and your empathy is noted. Humans often approach problems differently, yet your method is effective. You learn quickly, Dr. Mercer. The second trial was more personal. Elias was led to a chamber where Xythurian art and music were combined to test perception, intuition, and emotional understanding. Floating shapes of light and color moved in patterns that seemed chaotic at first, accompanied by music that shifted in rhythm and intensity. His task was to interpret the meaning and respond in a way that demonstrated understanding. Elias studied the patterns carefully. He noticed repetitions and subtle changes, the way the colors shifted with the music. He realized the simulation was not testing knowledge but emotional intelligence. Carefully, he mimicked the rhythm with small gestures and vocalizations, responding to the changes in tone and light. Slowly, the patterns shifted to brighter, harmonious colors and the music calmed. You perceive meaning where others see only chaos, a Xythurian instructor said. This is a strength. Understanding emotion and intention is as valuable as logic in our society. Elias felt a sense of accomplishment. These trials were unlike anything on Earth. They demanded creativity, adaptability, and empathy, traits humans often overlooked in scientific study. Yet here, those very traits were celebrated. The third trial, however, was physical, though not in the way he expected. Elias was led to the Garden of Floating Bridges, a vast area where pathways hovered over a deep, luminescent canyon. The bridges shifted slowly, requiring focus, balance, and adaptability. His task was to cross without falling and reach the center, where a small artifact awaited. Elias stepped cautiously onto the first bridge. The surface adjusted under his weight, subtle vibrations challenging his balance. He took a deep breath, recalling the training he had received from his tutors. Each movement required attention, foresight, and calm. One misstep could lead to failure, though the palace had safeguards to prevent real danger. Midway, the bridge shifted unexpectedly. Elias' heart raced, but he remembered what the queen had said. Adaptability and courage matter more than brute strength. He adjusted his steps, shifted his weight carefully, and moved forward. The bridges tested his patience, focus, and ability to stay calm under pressure. When he finally reached the center, the artifact glowed softly, signaling success. Queen Lysara appeared beside him, her gaze serene. You approach challenges with thoughtfulness and courage. Few of my people could complete this trial without hesitation. Your human qualities, reasoning, adaptability, and courage are valuable even in our advanced society. Elias nodded, feeling both relief and pride. Each trial had been a test, yet each also reminded him why humans could thrive even in alien worlds. It was not technology alone, but judgment, empathy, and humor that made a difference. The final trial of the day combined everything he had learned. In a large chamber, holographic citizens acted out a complex scenario. A sudden conflict between two alien species, with potential consequences for both planetary and diplomatic relations. Elias' task was to mediate, guide, and propose a solution that preserved peace and fairness. He observed quietly, listening to arguments, analyzing needs, and considering cultural context. Drawing on logic, empathy, and intuition, he proposed a solution that combined immediate relief with long-term cooperation. The simulation responded positively, showing harmony restored and relationships strengthened. Queen Lysara stepped forward. You have demonstrated remarkable skill. Your judgment, empathy, adaptability, and creativity surpass expectations. Humans often rely on simplicity and directness where we see complexity, yet your approach achieves balance and respect. You have passed your trials, Dr. Mercer. Elias felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. He had come here as a scientist, expecting observation and study. Instead, he had been tested, challenged, and recognized as a partner. The realization settled over him. Humans were capable of greatness in ways even advanced civilizations could respect. The Queen's gaze softened. Your humor, courage, and insight are valued. You are learning the ways of Xythuria, and you are earning respect not only from me but from our people. You are becoming more than a guest. You are becoming a bridge between worlds. Elias felt a surge of gratitude. He had stumbled into this role by accident, yet he was beginning to understand its significance. Being the Queen's husband was not about ceremony. It was about responsibility, partnership, and demonstrating that humans could contribute meaningfully even in a world far beyond their own. As the day ended, Elias walked through the palace gardens, reflecting on what he had learned. Each trial had been a lesson, each challenge a test of character. And with each success, he felt more confident that humans could be more than observers in the universe. They could be participants, valued for their unique qualities. That evening, as he prepared for rest, Elias thought about Earth. Humans often underestimated themselves, yet here he was, far from home, being recognized for the very traits humans often overlooked: empathy, humor, creativity, and courage. Perhaps this was the lesson the universe wanted to teach humanity. Adaptation and heart mattered as much as strength and intelligence. He looked out over the city, its lights twinkling like distant stars, and for the first time, Elias Mercer felt a deep sense of belonging, not to Earth, not fully, but to a wider universe that recognized his worth. And he understood something profound. Humans had value even in worlds far beyond their own. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, more challenges, and opportunities to prove himself further, but tonight he allowed himself a quiet smile. He had survived the trials. He had earned respect, and he had begun to realize the true meaning of being the Queen's husband: partnership, responsibility, and the chance to make a difference. Outside, Scythuria shimmered under twin moons, serene yet alive, full of mysteries waiting to be discovered. And in the quiet of his chamber, Elias finally felt it: hope, purpose, and the first glimmer of a future he could shape with his own two hands. Humans might be small in the vast universe, he thought, but they were capable of greatness, of connection, and of inspiring even the most advanced civilizations. And perhaps that was exactly what the universe needed. The morning light on Scythuria filtered gently through the crystalline windows of the palace, casting rainbow-like patterns across the polished floor. Doctor. Elias Mercer awoke with a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. Yesterday's trials had tested him, stretched his mind and courage, and taught him more about Scythurian culture than he had ever imagined possible. Today, however, promised something different. Today, he would begin building a deeper relationship with Queen Lysira herself. A soft chime echoed through the chamber, signaling the arrival of his guide. The Scythurian attendants' wings shimmered faintly as they approached. Doctor. Mercer, they said, voice calm and precise. Queen Lysira requests your presence in the Garden of Reflection. She wishes to speak with you privately. Elias nodded, taking a deep breath. The Garden of Reflection was one of the most serene areas of the palace, designed to foster contemplation and understanding. Floating flowers drifted slowly through the air, emitting soft, soothing light. Streams of water arched gracefully between suspended crystal pools. For humans, it felt like stepping into a dream. When Elias arrived, Queen Lysira was already there, seated upon a floating platform that hovered gently above a pool of glowing water. Her eyes, as always, held a depth of intelligence and observation that made him feel both nervous and inspired. Dr. Mercer, she said, her voice melodic, you have completed your trials and demonstrated qualities we value: adaptability, judgment, and empathy. But being my husband is more than passing tests. It is about understanding, partnership, and shared responsibility. Elias nodded. I understand, Your Majesty, and I want to learn, I want to help, and I want to understand your people and your world. Lysira studied him for a moment, then inclined her head slightly. You have begun to show humanity's strength. We admire your resilience, creativity, and courage, and yet there is more to understand: emotion, trust, and connection. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. He had never imagined that his accidental choice of words, husband, would lead to this. And now he realized that humor and courage could open doors even in worlds far beyond his own. The Queen rose gracefully and gestured for him to follow. Together they walked through the garden. Elias noticed that the floating plants seemed to respond to their presence, shifting slightly as if acknowledging their movement. This place, it feels alive, he said, gazing in wonder at the surroundings. It is, Lysira replied. Scythuria is a world of balance, harmony, and energy. Everything here is connected. Understanding this is vital for leadership and partnership. Humans often act impulsively, yet you have shown the ability to adapt. That is rare. As they walked, they came upon a chamber filled with holographic projections of distant planets and cosmic phenomena. Lysira gestured toward them. Your species has much to learn about the universe, yet you possess qualities that allow understanding where others see only complexity. This is why we value humans. Elias felt a surge of pride. For years, he had studied alien species from afar, imagining what they could teach humanity. Now, he realized that the lesson worked both ways. Humans could teach advanced civilizations about adaptability, courage, and ingenuity. Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden alert. The holographic projections shifted rapidly, showing a storm of energy approaching Scytheria from a nearby system. The palace alarms hummed, and advisors appeared in the room, their translucent forms glowing with urgency. "Doctor." "Mercer," Lysara said, her voice calm but firm, "this is your first real test in crisis. The storm threatens our floating cities and could disrupt resources across the planet. We must respond quickly. I want your advice on strategy and coordination." Elias felt his heart race. This was no simulation. Lives, cities, and ecosystems were at stake. He took a deep breath, recalling everything he had learned from the trials, observation, reasoning, and the ability to adapt. "First," he said, pointing to the holographic map, "we should prioritize areas in immediate danger. The cities closest to the storm's path need evacuation and protection. Next, we can deploy energy shields and stabilize key resources to prevent cascading failures. Communication is essential. Ensure every city receives instructions in real time. Finally, consider collaboration with our neighboring systems for additional support." Lysara's eyes widened slightly. "You think quickly and your reasoning is sound. We will follow your plan." Over the next several hours, Elias worked alongside the Queen and her advisors. His suggestions were implemented, and he coordinated with the Zythurian engineers and diplomats. The storm's energy was immense, but through careful planning, they minimized damage and ensured that the citizens remained safe. As the storm passed, Lysara turned to him. "Dr. Mercer, you have demonstrated more than knowledge. You have shown leadership, calmness, and courage. These qualities are essential for partnership." Elias smiled, though exhaustion tugged at him. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what seemed right. I never expected. This is more than I imagined." The Queen's expression softened. "Your humility and honesty are rare. Many leaders act for recognition, not for the welfare of others. You have proven yourself worthy." Over the next days, Elias continued to work closely with Lysara. Together, they addressed diplomatic concerns, reviewed policies for trade and resources, and helped mediate disputes among Zythurians. In the process, they began to understand each other on a deeper level. He learned about the Queen's experiences, her responsibilities, and her vision for Zythuria's future. She learned about humans, their resilience, creativity, and ability to connect across differences. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the floating gardens, Lysara spoke softly. "You have changed the way we perceive humans. Your perspective, your humor, and your courage inspire my people. You have become more than a guest, Dr. Mercer. You are a partner in every sense of the word." Elias felt a warmth he had never experienced. I never imagined this when I said that one word," he admitted, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Husband, I thought it was a joke." Lysara's eyes glimmered. "Sometimes the unexpected leads to the most extraordinary outcomes. Your choice, your courage to speak honestly, brought humanity closer to Zythuria than any study or observation could." Their bond continued to grow, built on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and a genuine curiosity about each other's worlds. Elias found that humor often broke tension, and his human perspective provided solutions that Zythurians had overlooked. Lysara appreciated his honesty, his willingness to learn, and his capacity to remain calm under pressure. But the partnership was tested again when a minor diplomatic conflict arose with a neighboring planet. A delegation arrived, disputing trade agreements and resource allocation. The Zythurian Council debated heatedly, unable to reach consensus. Elias stepped forward, remembering his lessons in observation, empathy, and negotiation. He listened carefully, acknowledged each party's concerns, and proposed a compromise that respected both Zythurian and alien interests. The council agreed, and the delegation left satisfied. Lysara looked at him with approval. "Your perspective is invaluable. You are not just learning, you are contributing. This is what partnership truly means." In quieter moments, Elias reflected on how far he had come. From a nervous scientist accidentally volunteering as a husband, he had become a trusted advisor, a partner, and a bridge between worlds. He realized that human qualities, empathy, humor, creativity, and courage were not weaknesses but strengths, capable of inspiring even the most advanced civilizations. One evening, as they walked through the glowing gardens, Lysira paused and turned to him. "Doctor." "Mercer, humans often underestimate themselves, yet you have proven that courage, adaptability, and heart matter. You have not only earned my respect but also the trust of my people. You are part of our world now." Elias nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I never expected this role, but I am honored. I will continue to learn, to help, and to honor the trust you have placed in me." The Queen smiled, a rare and genuine expression that lit up her features. "We will face challenges ahead, Dr. Mercer. Crises, decisions, and unexpected events will test us both. But together, I believe we can strengthen not only Zytheria but the bond between our worlds." As night fell, Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the floating city. The twin moons reflected in the crystal towers, the gardens glowed softly, and the gentle hum of the palace filled the air. He felt a sense of awe and belonging, knowing that humans, his species, had a place in the vast universe, capable of inspiring, contributing, and connecting across worlds. He realized something important: being the Queen's husband was not merely a title. It was a responsibility, a partnership, and a chance to shape the future. It required courage, intelligence, empathy, and humor. And he thought with a small, quiet smile it required heart, the very quality humans often underestimated in themselves. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more diplomacy, and perhaps even danger. But tonight, Elias Mercer allowed himself a moment of peace. He had become more than a visitor. He had become part of something extraordinary. And as the twin moons shone over Zytheria, he knew this was only the beginning. The morning air on Zytheria felt different that day. The twin suns rose slowly over the crystalline city, casting long, shimmering reflections across the floating gardens. "Doctor." Elias Mercer stood on a balcony, gazing out at the horizon. Today was no ordinary day. It was the culmination of everything he had learned, experienced, and contributed as the Queen's husband. Over the past weeks, he had grown into his role, navigating the palace, learning Zytherian customs, passing trials, and even helping manage crises. He had gained the respect of advisors, diplomats, and citizens alike. Yet the challenge ahead promised to test him like never before. A sudden alarm echoed through the palace. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing a massive asteroid on a collision course with Zytheria. Its trajectory would strike one of the floating cities directly, threatening thousands of lives. The palace vibrated with urgency. Elias took a deep breath. This was the ultimate test, a real-world crisis where every decision could mean the difference between disaster and survival. He quickly moved to the council hall, where Queen Lysira and her advisors were already analyzing the threat. "Doctor." "Mercer," Lysira said, her calm voice carrying authority, "this situation requires immediate action. Your insight will be invaluable. We must act quickly to protect the citizens and preserve our society." Elias studied the holographic projection. The asteroid was massive, its energy destructive but not unstoppable. He analyzed its trajectory, the cities at risk, and the available defenses. "We can divert it," he said, pointing at the plan displayed before them. "Energy shields can absorb part of the impact. We can mobilize the city's levitation systems to shift the population centers temporarily. And if we focus Zytherian propulsion energy at the asteroid, we can alter its course slightly and reduce the threat significantly." The Queen's eyes met his, showing trust and confidence. "Then we will follow your guidance." Elias coordinated with engineers, pilots, and diplomats, issuing orders and adjusting strategies in real time. The asteroid moved closer, and the tension in the chamber was palpable. Every decision mattered. He relied on everything he had learned from the trials: observation, logical reasoning, adaptability, and empathy for the people whose lives were at stake. As the operation progressed, Elias realized something remarkable. Humans, he thought, were capable of problem-solving even in situations far beyond their natural environment. Creativity, courage, and quick thinking were as important as strength or technology. His insights complemented the Zytherian systems perfectly, demonstrating how two very different species could work together to overcome danger. The asteroid approached. Energy shields glowed brightly around the city, levitation systems activated, and propulsion beams focused on the rock. Elias coordinated with precision, his human instincts guiding decisions where Zythurian logic alone would have been slower. Then, a sudden shift occurred. The asteroid broke into two smaller fragments, one heading toward a smaller city on the outskirts. Time was critical. Elias calculated quickly. Divert the shields toward the smaller city. Adjust the levitation grids to move citizens to higher platforms. We can still save them all. The Queen's eyes gleamed with respect. Dr. Mercer, your intuition is remarkable. Proceed. With coordinated efforts, the citizens were moved to safety. The shields absorbed the fragment's energy, and the propulsion systems nudged the asteroid's pieces off course. The city remained intact, and lives were saved. The chamber erupted in quiet awe. Zythurians rarely displayed such open emotion, but now there was relief, gratitude, and admiration. Elias exhaled, exhausted but triumphant. He had not only survived the trials, but had proven that humans could make a real difference in the universe, even on a planet far beyond Earth. Later, Queen Lysara approached him in the Garden of Reflection. Her expression was soft but full of pride. "Doctor Mercer," she said, "you have done more than I could have imagined. Your courage, insight, and humanity have preserved lives and strengthened our society. You have proven that your species has qualities we greatly respect." Elias felt a warmth in his chest. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I could not have done it without your trust and the support of your people. Humans are capable, yes, but we also need guidance and collaboration to reach our potential." Lysara smiled faintly. "Humility is as important as courage. You possess both, which makes you a partner in every sense." The weeks following the asteroid incident brought a new era for Zythuria. Humans were no longer merely visitors. They were collaborators, advisors, and in some cases, students of Zythurian knowledge. Elias became the bridge between Earth and Zythuria, demonstrating that humanity's adaptability, creativity, and courage could inspire and complement even the most advanced civilizations. He continued to work closely with the Queen, advising on diplomatic matters, participating in council decisions, and helping plan for future planetary challenges. Each day reinforced his belief that humans had unique qualities that could make a difference in the universe. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the floating gardens, Elias and Lysara walked together, discussing plans for a new interstellar trade initiative. Their partnership was no longer accidental or symbolic. It was real, grounded in mutual respect, trust, and shared purpose. "You have changed Zythuria, Dr. Mercer," Lysara said softly. "Your presence has shown us that humans are capable of remarkable courage and insight. You are not just my husband, you are a symbol of what humanity can achieve." Elias smiled, humbled yet proud. "I never imagined this journey would lead here. I only know that humans, when faced with challenges, can rise to meet them. That's what I wanted to show, and you have given me the chance to do so." The Queen's eyes gleamed with admiration. "And you have done so with honor and humility. Together, we can lead Zythuria and humanity into a future of cooperation, understanding, and growth." As days turned into weeks, the alliance between humans and Zythurians strengthened. New programs were established to exchange knowledge, technology, and culture. Humans taught ingenuity and creativity. Zythurians shared wisdom, advanced science, and philosophy. The partnership flourished, and Elias found himself at the center of this extraordinary collaboration. Yet more than strategy, diplomacy, or knowledge, the greatest change was personal. His bond with Queen Lysara deepened, built on respect, trust, and a shared commitment to both their peoples. Humor, kindness, and understanding became as important as intelligence and skill. They laughed together, debated thoughtfully, and planned boldly. Elias realized that even in a world of crystal cities and floating gardens, human qualities, heart, courage, and adaptability, could inspire change. One evening, as they observed the glowing moons reflecting on the pools of the palace gardens, Lysara spoke softly. "Dr. Mercer, your journey was never meant to be simple, yet you have embraced every challenge. You have proven that humans are not only observers of the universe, they can shape it." Elias nodded, looking at the vast expanse before him. "We are small, yes, but capable. Courage, ingenuity, and empathy matter, perhaps more than technology or power alone. Humanity has potential, and we can rise to meet it." The Queen smiled. Then we will rise together, your people and mine, united in purpose and respect. You are more than a visitor. You are a partner, a symbol, and a bridge between worlds. In that moment, Elias felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey that began with a simple, nervous joke, husband, had transformed into something extraordinary. He had navigated alien society, earned respect, saved lives, and built a partnership that could shape the future of entire worlds. As he looked over Zytheria, the city shimmering under the moons, he understood something profound. Humans, when given trust, opportunity, and responsibility, could inspire even the most advanced civilizations. Courage, creativity, adaptability, and heart were not weaknesses. They were strengths that could change the course of history. And as the palace lights reflected in the gentle waters of the floating gardens, Elias Mercer realized that this was only the beginning. A new era had begun, an era of collaboration, understanding, and hope. Humans and Zythurians together could explore the universe, face challenges, and discover possibilities that neither could achieve alone. He turned to Queen Lysara, who regarded him with warmth and respect. "We have work to do," she said, her voice soft but determined. "The future is ours to shape," Elias smiled. "Then let's begin." And with that, humanity took its place in the stars, not as observers, but as partners, innovators, and contributors. The accidental husband of the alien queen had become a symbol of courage, adaptability, and the extraordinary potential of humans. The twin moons of Zytheria shone brightly over the city, reflecting hope, progress, and the promise of a future where worlds and species could unite in purpose and friendship. And as the palace hummed softly around them, Elias Mercer knew that humanity's story had only just begun.